Hi, my name is Andrew Kinnear, and I'm a volunteer for Freebruary. Thanks for joining us for this limited interview series with entrepreneurs from across Canada. I hope you enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Jared.
And I'm Lindsay, and we're the co-founders of Wander.
Hi, I'm Jared. I'm the co-founder of Wander Nut Butters.
Thanks, Jared. Why don't you tell me where you are right now?
Right now, I'm in my fancy dancy home office in Toronto, where we run Wander out of.
Nice. And do you make it at home?
We don't actually. We technically could, according to the bylaws and laws in the city of Toronto. However, we're dealing with peanut butter, and peanut butter is very messy and a giant pain to clean up. So we went straight to a facility. We do make it ourselves, though. We're hands-on in the process. We just don't make it in our own kitchen.
Awesome. Tell me more about these nut butters.
Yeah, it came from cooking with a lot of peanut butter and being a foodie and obviously missing out on travel through the pandemic. They are all globally inspired. So each one draws on the flavor profiles from different regions of the world, cuisines that we cook a lot and love, and in some cases have visited. So we launched initially with a Thai peanut butter. So that's peanuts with lime leaf and lemongrass and a little bit of ginger with a pinch of salt in there. So really like almost like a satay sauce. We also launched with a Moroccan, so really drawing on some of those warm spice flavors from that region. So you have cinnamon and ginger as your top two dominant flavors, with these little hints of coriander and cumin giving some backing warmth and a little bit of floral note, again with a pinch of salt. And then our newest one, which has been flying off shelves, is our Indian peanut butter, which is a sweet garam masala. Garam masala in and of itself is a blend of numerous spices, and it's very different, even household to household, let alone region to region. So ours is our own kind of unique blend, very warming, and I find it almost sweet just due to the spices we have in there. It's a huge list, but it includes ginger and cinnamon and fennel and anise. It's just lovely. It's a really, really nice one. It's my favorite right now, actually.
They sound, those two other ones sound delicious. I've tried the Thai. It's delicious. We haven't cracked the next one yet, although I guess I should just try it. We have it. We just haven't tried the second one yet. And then the Indian spices, we haven't tried that one yet. We'll have to get that. Now, are there other places, regions in the world that you see joining the suite of products, and so this becomes a very international approach?
Yeah, definitely. So Lindsay, who's my co-founder and wife, who might be doing a cameo in a little bit, we are actually currently discussing two new flavors. We have them both in testing right now. We're trying to figure out which one we like most, but we're not sharing them with each other yet, even.
Of course.
Till we get them to the point that we know that we like it, so then we'll do the cross test and see which one do we want to go to market with. So that's definitely in the works. And then we're also looking down the road to bring in alternate butters as well, probably an almond butter. Timelines on all this is very dependent, of course, on how our first three SKUs do and how we grow and how everything else flows. Because the whole thing with small business, right? You have all these dreams and aspirations, this huge plan you want to execute, and you just need things, you have to take it one step at a time. So trying very hard not to jump the gun.
One step at a time.
Definitely have lots of plans for new flavors, almond butter as well, for sure. Hopefully organic down the road. Lots of growth plans.
So, or when you say organic down the road, like you're going to gear up to get certified and make all the products organic? Is that what you mean?
I don't know that we're going to go fully certified. Some of the spices are challenging to get in and of themselves, let alone organic, because I've already done some research into it. It would also make the price point on the product far higher than I would feel comfortable selling it, and that you as a consumer would be wanting to pay for it. But the peanuts, then the butters we use would shift to being an organic base, so it would be the 98% organic, with the spices being the component that wouldn't be. But that's again,
I think that still qualifies. I think you have to hit 95 or something, or
it'd be very close. I don't think currently my plan isn't to get certified on anything. Cost being one of the biggest barriers for me, as with all small businesses, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
if it's not moving units off the shelf too, then sometimes those kind of decisions, you put them off, and it's not affecting anything, you don't do it. So that's smart.
Yeah. Exactly. Thanks. Yeah.
I'm curious, when you were talking about testing, when you're testing a new butter, you've got a new flavor, or even just the three that you spent time developing, how do you test it? And what I mean by that is, like, is it a spoonful in your mouth? Do you spread it on toast? Like, how do you get the flavors, but in a way that other people will also eat the flavors?
That's a great question. So we did all the testing in my home kitchen, which is how I know peanut butter is a pain to clean up. I've cleaned up way too much of it from places you don't imagine peanut butter could possibly get. So for the first two flavors in particular, I had a really clear idea in my head of what I wanted that flavor to be. And even the third one, and now with these two, we kind of know what we want.
Mm-hmm.
So where we started was getting the flavors to be close to that flavor profile off a spoon. Like we wanted that flavor to be there. And the core piece of this for us was two things. One, we wanted them spiced, not spicy. So that meant not adding any heat, like cayenne or anything like that. But also we had to watch things like ginger. So on the Thai, there's a lot of ginger in that Thai, and you do get a little bit of warming heat, but you would never call it spicy. Like, ooh, that's a little warming. That's nice. So we took a lot of fine tuning to get that quite right. The Moroccan, I thought I wanted a certain blend and a certain flavor, and honestly, it just wasn't working. And I kept trying to force this flavor profile. And I lost count of what number it was when I finally said, you know what, I got to take a step back. What's going wrong? And I realized that what I was trying to create didn't match the inspiring dish. I was trying to create this thing off of my perception of Moroccan food at large, but the inspiration for this dish was the specific Moroccan stew we make. So I said, what am I doing? So scrapped everything, went back to that stew recipe, pulled everything out of there, and then started from scratch from that standpoint to try and figure out how to make it work in a peanut butter. So in the spreadable format, that's the second thing we were going for. Mild enough, you can add it to your peanut butter and jam and just have a certain je ne sais quoi to it.
Yes.
But strong enough that you want to make cookies or jumpstart a stir fry or do a cheat version that's using, peanut butter and some sriracha and soy sauce and get a kind of more authentic Thai quick cheat sauce. It's strong enough you can do that. And to find that balance was really tricky. And that was the next stage. Once we got the flavor where we wanted it, then it was about finding the right level. And that actually took a lot. And so we got into a point where I knew it wasn't right, but it was close enough. And I went out and I literally gave out samples. I reached out to, I think I posted up on Facebook and LinkedIn. Or maybe I think I only posted up on Facebook, and then I reached out to a bunch of people via LinkedIn saying, hey, I'm creating this product. I have it at a stage where I need some really honest, blunt feedback. Can I give you some samples? And, I had 40 odd households.
These are friends and family, or these are professionals?
Friends, family, professionals, business acquaintances. So they're all people I know, which allowed me to go and drop them off. This is the middle of the pandemic. So this would have been December of 2020. Right. So I didn't want to be going to strangers' houses with these little plastic sample cups. Right. Like, this was not professional, man. Like, I would have been laughed out of anywhere. Any retailer would have laughed me out of their store. So it was really low scale budget because it was friends, family, and colleagues. Everyone understand what it's all about. But also I could go and drop it off for everyone. And so at the time, I was looking at potentially having to invest like $40K into a piece of machinery, which was way, 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 way more than I ever planned to put into this. I didn't have that capital ready, but I had financing options. So I was prepared to do it if the product was good enough. And fortunately, thanks to my amazing, amazing production partners, I will shout them out, Manning Canning. I love them to pieces. I've refined this process. And another advisor of mine, shout him out too, Michael Abramson, just genius of a guy, really helped me refine some of my early stage process. And then the fine ladies over at Manning Canning really fine-tuned it for me.
Christine's going to be on the show.
Is she?
Later.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
She's got her own lines too. So that's great.
It's great. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So I, with these samples, what I got to do was I got to go and drop them off. And so thanks to me changing my process, didn't have to buy a piece of equipment. Back on the loop now. Didn't end up buying it, but at the time I thought I might have to. So with each person I dropped it off, I could quite honestly look them in the eye and say, hey, thank you so much for doing this. So I'm about to jeopardize my daughter's future by taking out a giant loan. So I need you to be, it's a completely anonymous. So I need you to be blunt, brutal. Like, if it's awful, you got to tell me. And everyone went, oh, okay, we'll take it really seriously. And I give full credit to everyone who took part. Did they ever? They were blunt, they were honest. And so when I went in, and so I have a background in sciences and stats in particular, research. So when I got my data back, I did two things to make sure my product was actually going to be valid. One, I used a trimmed average. There's a couple on the top where there's a little bit too much love. It may have been legitimate, but it's like, no. I can't have that much. That's skewing it that way. And there's a couple people who are really outliers on the far other side, who are clearly never going to be consumers of mine because they just didn't like the spice profiles or weren't really peanut butter eaters, which I tried to eliminate from my sample group, but you still have a few. So I trimmed them out. And then instead of looking for 100% or like 90 to 100% to move forward, I actually went with 78 to 85. It had to be in that range. Again, to eliminate some of that top bias. But also if it dropped below that, if I can't get that many people interested in my product, why am I going to go forward with this?
Right.
And everything ended up in the 82, 83 range. So I was like, all right, perfect. And the feedback was solid. And with the feedback, it was the feedback I needed that would take it from the 80s to the 90s. And that's what I ended up rolling forward with. And that was also required a number of different adjustments along the way.
Kind of like a chair.
It's kind of like the chair.
Oh, weird.
Welcome.
Hello. Oh,
Hello.
Very low.
Oh, she's too low.
Too low.
we're gonna do a little
There we go.
hover squat.
Nice. You got the hover squat. Hi, I'm Andrew Kinnear. We
Hey.
haven't met. How did you get from we have this idea to, as a family, it's now a business that you run as a family?
Well, I'll kick off and you give your 2 cents along the way. So I had a spur of the moment idea hit me while standing in our kitchen cooking one of those cheap Thai meals. And I was just lamenting how there's no ginger and no lemongrass. And I'm more of a savory guy than a sweet guy. And so that path kind of took me down to there's no savory peanut butters. Why are there no savory peanut butters? And I turned to Lindsay and I said, hey, Lindsay, do you think there'd be a market for savory peanut butters? And she basically said, maybe, I don't know, go do your research and come back to me. I said, okay. So, I spent a couple months, reaching out to people all over North America in the industry, kind of finding out what's going on, talked to an incredible company down in the US who does have a spicy Thai, funnily enough. I've tried all their products. They're fantastic. West Coast US. And kind of came back and said, I think there's an opportunity here. It's a bit of empty space. I think here's what it'll take for us to launch and to try it. And what do you think?
And I don't want to say that I'm an enabler, but certainly when Jared comes with a good idea that's well researched, I have no place to say no. And also, I think that you can categorize our relationship as it's an adventure. Like if we're traveling and something goes weird or wrong, it's not, oh no, what are we going to do? It's an adventure. Let's see what happens. So this is just our 2021 and onwards adventure that we're on.
Awesome. So Lindsay, we covered a couple of things with Jared before you got here, but I'll ask for both of you to answer this question. Maybe Lindsay, you go first. What's something you learned running this business that you wish you knew before you started? So this is like maybe some nugget that another entrepreneur that's 2 years behind you in their journey, what's something that you would tell them?
Never underestimate the amount of time it takes to do social media. It's not and this is coming from somebody who does not live in the marketing world, so maybe those who are a little bit more in the zone are familiar with, but nobody just posts day of. Nobody, unless you've got a really good reason to post something that is viral or relevant, everything is planned and it takes so much time, from idea generation to content creation to editing and editorializing or not editorializing to building strategy. It's an entire job in and of itself.
Awesome. Great answer. Thank you. What about you, Jared?
So, I came into this knowing quite a bit from knowing a lot of these founders and talking to them a lot.
Yeah.
I have still been surprised by a couple things. One of the biggest ones actually that I've heard bubbling up from two things actually from a lot of founders, and I think they're worth repeating. One is the cost of shipping. It is a lot, and consumers don't want to pay it. And it's a real barrier to your success depending on your price point of your product. Shipping through Canada Post within Toronto, you're looking for our products. It just went up, so now it's between $11 and $13 per shipment, which is a ton. So you have to think about that as you're trying to figure out your pricing and your go-to-market strategies. How are you going to compensate that if you're going to go direct to consumer? Because it's a lot.
Do you think that that's an advantage for newer brands versus legacy brands? Legacy brands don't have that ability to build that into their cost structure. They literally have to add it on top and then either eat it or upcharge, versus newer brands can kind of build it into maybe cost of goods or some component of their structure. Is it an advantage, or do you think it weighs differently because legacy brands are already on shelf and, you know, so they've got other advantages?
I think it ends up kind of balancing out in the math. Because to me, direct to consumer is a channel, but unless you're a true novelty product or you've set up a subscription service, for most consumers, you won't be the primary place they want to buy you, right? Because they have to go out of their way to find you. So for the big legacy brands who are doing it, it's more to capture that percentage of consumers who want to come and buy all their products in one shot. And so for them, they can kind of absorb that cost a little bit more easily, because also they're cannibalizing some of their own sales in doing so. Whereas for the startup brand, we can build it into our cost to a degree, but we also don't have the awareness. So we don't have traffic coming to us where we don't have the volumes where that volume can help offset some of that cost, right? So like there are shipping options in and around the city. We use one as well, where if you're doing 3 or more shipments in a day, the price comes down to $6, which is great. But then you still have to have volume. You still have to have 3 orders to go out on any given day. And when you're starting out, if you don't have very strong marketing or high awareness in advance, or if your go-to-market plan goes sideways on you, like ours kind of did, you start with 0 awareness. And so it takes forever for you to get those volumes up to get there. So I think it kind of balances out of it.
So one thing that made me think of is new brands, especially, there's almost a level of understanding when it comes from your customers. Do you play that up a bit? Like, you know, I know for our small brand too, if I have to tell a customer like, oh, we bumped your delivery to next week, it's not the end of the world. And so then that flexibility ends up saving you money because you can bundle, you can gang up shipments and things like that. Do you find like that relationship is really important in the beginning?
I would say if when you have the opportunity to do that, we're not at that point. We are scattered in our incoming orders, so we couldn't guarantee that we could push it to next week at this point.
So you have to make sure like every unit pays for itself, because it might have to go out on its own, is what you're saying.
Or the next one could be going to Vancouver. So it's not going to meet our criteria to get the better shipping. So at this point, we're trying to just be amazing turnaround. There are people, if we drop off early enough within the GTA, we'll get their order the next day. And that's pretty darn good for a baby brand.
Yeah, we also do group our shipments together. So we ship twice a week. So in our shipping policy is we ship on Mondays and Thursdays. So orders placed up until noon on Sunday, a little bit of buffer, get shipped out on Monday. Anything after that cutoff point gets shipped out on the next one, which would be Wednesday, and anything after Wednesday noon basically gets shipped out following. So we ship on the 2 days. So that sometimes helps us hit those numbers. But again, you know, your website's a great source of a great place for people to buy your product, but they have to get there first, right? So if you're not driving high enough volume or it's not converting quickly enough, you're not always hitting even on that delayed shipment schedule. You're not always getting those quantities you need, and that's where having those retail partners becomes really vital. And that's the other side. The other thing I've learned is I knew it was going to be hard to get into retail. It is so much harder to get into retail than I thought. I mean, I'm not even talking about the big retailers, because I mean, they got listing fees that are, you know, in the tens of thousands of dollars for some products and categories. I'm going to start even talking about some of the smaller independents. You know, it's easy for us as a brand to complain, but there also are small businesses who are trying to manage a whole store full of tons of products. Yeah. And so lots of them are now requiring you to work with a distributor. Well, now a distributor is like a big retailer, and you know, you have to find the ones who can take you in at the right volumes, and they want really extended shelf lives. And if we're fortunate, we're shelf stable with a okay shelf life. You know, we Ours is a 6 month, usually 5 to 6 months, but they want like 8 to 12 because we're shelf stable and that's their minimums. And they want, huge percentages of margin to be able to do all of it. So, it's really challenging to do. And the alternate options are things like consignment, which is great, but it means you get delayed on your payments, which if you can do, fine, but cash flows. Or you basically pay rent for a shelf space in a store, which is where we got our first 2 retail partners, one of which ended up not being a great fit. So what's nice about that is you have flexibility. You're paying them on a month-to-month basis, or depending on what the contract is. But if it's not working, there's no penalty to bail out. Whereas if you're in a retailer with a certain commitment, you can't just bail. You really got to stick out the whole thing. And the other one's been fantastic for us. It's been a really great way for us to grow not just our sales, but our awareness. We've had all of our social growth thanks to purchases made at the stores. It's been really helpful. And more importantly, they help promote us on their socials, which is why Freebruary is so great too, right? Everyone promotes and shares each other's brands. This means more eyeballs on each other's brands, which means eventually more sales for everyone, which is great.
You beat me to my next question. I was going to say, other than things like Freebruary, tell me a bit about generating awareness. What would you say your kind of your goal for 2022 is when it comes to getting people to try, right? Awareness and trial for a new brand that's key. Tell me a bit about your approach.
Yeah, I think one thing that we found extremely useful over the Christmas season was being in people's faces. We were fortunate enough to be at a winter market, like crafters kind of situation, where when you get us in front of people, it's an easy sell. It translates a lot more easily what the neatness, the uniqueness of our product is, which doesn't always translate if you're pushing through social media necessarily. You'll get some adventurous eaters, but talking face to face is really a great way that we found to pick people up, and inevitably it ended up giving us our first proper on-shelf placement. So you can never underestimate the benefit of being face to face.
Where can people find you?
So right now you can find us at tastewander.com. You can also, and that's where you can go and take advantage of Freebruary. If you happen to be purchasing through freshwagon.ca, you can find us there as well. If you live out in the Durham region, you can find us at Urban Market. And if you're up in the Mount Albert area, we are now listed at Brooks Farms.
Amazing. Okay, thanks for joining us, guys. We're going to wrap it up here, and good luck with Wander.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
Don't worry, we'll fix it in post.
That's what post is for.
That's what it's for.